In this video, I'm going to give you a couple of extra tips and tricks to help you get better at solving the 4x4 with the reduction method. So this first tip is just a quick way of being slightly more efficient during your centers. So for example, here we've solved the 4 white centerpieces into the bottom layer, and we've solved these 3, or perhaps these 3 have already been solved automatically into our top layer. And we want to figure out how a quick way to insert this last this last centerpiece from the front face to the top face. And depending on how they're actually rotated around this top layer and this front layer, so depending on what rotation here we have, there are a number of things that we can do. So for example, here, just after messing that up, we can insert this centerpiece from here to the top layer by simply doing an L prime, a wide L prime to actually pair these 2 up and move these 2 to the back, then do a U prime to move these to the side, and then do an L. If we have the centers, for example, in this arrangement, where we have the 1 here and the 3 like that, we can do a wide R to pair up these 2, do a U prime, and then do a wide R prime to bring these 2 back down and form the whole center. After you've solved the first 2 centers, a couple of other things that can be useful for solving your third center are to solve it on the bottom. So if, for example, you have this bar down here, it's nice to actually keep it on the right-hand side like that. So for example, these green pieces, and actually just use the front and the top faces, if your other 2 pieces are there, to maneuver the centers around, match them up, and then after you've paired them up, like in this example, you can just do an R2 or just an R prime to move them into the bottom. And that way you can keep track of where you have your centers solved. So here you'll have a mental note, okay, I've solved the green center in the bottom now. Another common mistake, or something where you can be more efficient, is if you're only solving the third center, there's no need to replace it, move it across, and bring it back down like that to solve the green center. All you need to do is just do a U2 to bring these empty centerpieces here, and then pair them up like that. Initially, it will take you a little while to get familiar with solving the 4th center, as it's the hardest one because it's the one where you need to figure out exactly what color it is. So in the method that I taught you, which was blue, yellow, red, like that, in a clockwise direction, if we're trying to replicate that on a 4x4 and we've solved, for example, the green center, if we go green, yellow, then obviously red doesn't belong here. So if we've got the opposite of blue here, but then the yellow, then the opposite of red belongs here. So if we've got green, yellow, then orange belongs on top like that. So that's how I like to try and think about it. But obviously it will take you a little while to actually get used to the positions of centers relative to one another. And that's something you just need to memorize and practice. So after we've solved our third center, something that we can also do is kind of be aware of where other centerpieces are that may need to be solved. So for example, here we're trying to solve the orange stick centers into this face. We've got this bar here, but it's probably worth us actually forming a bar using the orange centers on this face first, and then inserting this bar afterwards, because it's already paired up nicely for us. So it's easier to actually create a bar out of this centerpiece and this one down below, noticing that the only place where the remaining orange center could be is down on this bottom face, because we've solved this center and we've also seen that there's only 2 orange stickers here. So the remaining orange piece must be down here. So we can move it into this position by doing a D2, so that when we do a wide R2, it actually pairs it up from this position moves it from this position to actually pair up these 2. Move it across and then do a wide R2 to resolve this green center. Then this bar is preserved here, so all we need to do is just rotate the cube along the X axis and then do a R, U2, R prime, like that, to insert these last 2 centerpieces from here to here. Again, color neutrality also applies to your 4x4 solve. So here, we don't have any white pieces matched up. So we've got all the white pieces on different faces, but we also have these 3 orange stickers already paired up. So what we can do is just match these 2 up, do a U, and then do an R prime like that to solve this orange center first, instead of fiddling around and trying to solve the harder white center. And so obviously then after that, we'll need to solve the red center on this opposite face. So we can move this one up here like that. So what I did there was move this one to this position and then moved across and then brought this red sticker back down, and then solve our last 2 red stickers, so red centerpieces. So this one and this one we can match up by doing a wide U, and then we can move them into the top layer by replacing it, doing a U2, and then doing an L. And obviously this will be slightly more difficult in terms of figuring out the center order. So here, for example, if we solve the blue, like that, then we need to figure out that, okay, on this face belongs our yellow center, and on this face belongs our white centerpieces, because in a clockwise direction it goes blue, yellow, red. And that's just, yeah, like I said, something you need to get used to and practice and just get familiar with the orientation and the location of the centers. So when you're starting out and doing your edges, it can be initially easy to just try and pair up the white edges first and then the yellow ones. But again, we can be color neutral in edges. So it might be a little bit more difficult. And I think for a little while, you should definitely just focus on doing all the white ones first and then do all the yellow ones. But after you're familiar with actually pairing up edges, then you can be color neutral in your edges as well. So here we have an easy case where it would be silly to just try and look for a white edge or a yellow edge pair when we have these two already paired up. So this green and orange one and this green and orange one down here, we can just take advantage of that and pair it up, replace it, and unslice like that instead of trying to do a white one. And obviously there'll be situations, or it might be easier to do a white one first, but it's just good to be color neutral and take advantage of easy situations during our edges as well. After you solve your centers and pair up your edges, don't worry about being super optimal with your cross, because it will take you too long to actually try and plan a move optimal solution for your cross pieces. Just try and insert them as quickly as possible and then move on to your F2L, because yeah, it's quite difficult to actually plan a really efficient solution when you don't actually have inspection time, because the time between your edges and your 3x3 stage still counts as part of your overall solve time, of course. Like with anything, with a bit more practice, you'll slowly become familiar with ways to solve your centers, ways to solve your edges, as well as getting familiar and better at looking ahead during your centers. And where you'll find look ahead is a little bit harder is actually during your edges, because there's so many different things around the cube and you're only looking for 2 pieces at a time around a set of 24 different edge pieces.